entrepreneurship because I had a mail store. I was in the mail business then. I was 18 years old, and I trafficked over 8,000 pounds of marijuana. From my shipping store, it literally sold itself. Our goal was to get big bales of marijuana on the right truck. I could manipulate the shipping records however I wanted. According to the records, I just had a lot of packages from different customers. I had no idea that they had started putting tracking devices and started watching all the drivers. Now they're focusing on me. I had got myself into something that I wasn't gonna be able to get myself out of. My name is Frederick Hudson. I was born in Brooklyn, New York. There was a certain energy about New York. It was mainly just us and my mother at the time, and she was always very entrepreneurial, taking care of us. My mom's always been known in the community as a great chef. What she did was she bought 6 tables. She turned our living room to a dining room. And every Sunday, people would come after church and they would eat in our living room. I don't know if the New York Health Code would have called it a legitimate business. You know, I'm pretty sure we didn't have a restaurant license, but, you know, my job was to always keep the music playing, and it used to be like Kenny G and jazz in the background and working in the kitchen, helping her out. Whether it be her running a restaurant out of our living room or doing catering jobs, she was just always very entrepreneurial, and that's what I saw growing up, and that's, you know, my first exposure to that. We moved to Florida when I was about 13, so I was split between growing up in New York, and then most of my childhood was in St. Petersburg, Florida. Florida was a completely different environment for me. So, you know, in New York, it was this melting pot. I saw all different types of people. It wasn't until I got to Florida where I really saw races being divided. We moved into my grandma's house, which is this tiny 3-bedroom where somehow my mom, my sister, my brother, my aunt, her husband, and my grandma, and a couple cousins all lived in this house. When I go there now for Thanksgiving, I'm like, how on earth did we all fit?
Fries, take one.
Frederick Hudson is my little cousin. I've known him all my life, raised him. He always had drive, smart, funny, just a happy person.
I looked up to Fry. I used to steal his clothes and wear them to school, and he would have, you know, the nice car and the big rims and the jewelry. I just saw him around, and I never actually saw him go to work, but he always had money.
You know, we bought jewelry. I had a $50,000 chain, BMW, Cadillac Escalade.
The wheels in my head started turning, like, what the hell are you doing? For some people, the image of success may be someone who was an attorney or a lawyer or a doctor, someone who went to college. For me, my image of success was the neighborhood drug dealers, which the biggest one at the time was my cousin Fry.
I gave him that drive that he got. Well, me and D gave him that drive.
Yeah, I'm cool.
Yeah.
D is Derek. We call him D. Him and Fry were best friends. D's very low-key. The only thing that gives him away is when he smiles, he has a mouthful of gold. But other than that, he's extremely low-key.
I've been selling weed since I was actually probably like 14 years old. And I always watched my mama. She struggled, she worked so hard. So in my mind, I always said, I'm gonna make a lot of money, I'm gonna take care of my mama. So that was the easiest way out to the drug game, so. Freddie looked at us because he's seen all the cars and, you know, the jewelry, the girls and stuff like that, and the houses that we used to live in. He's like, how you get all these cars? Then that's what I told him. I said, one day you'll get it.
My mother used to always warn me and say, you know, don't get involved. But at the end of the day, that was my cousin. So, you know, when your peers around you all are living a certain way and you're not, then it's very easy to say, well, I'm just gonna do what they're doing.
Freddie came to me and tried to get some weed for me to give him to sell. I wouldn't give it to him at first because I didn't want him in that. When I didn't give it to him, he went somewhere else and got it.
I had another group of friends that Fry didn't know. Said, yo, can I get some? And I think I had a couple $100 or something. So he gave me 3, 4, 20 sacks or something like that. Extremely small, extremely petty. But for me, I thought I was Pablo Escobar, right? So it was it was a big deal. So everyone that I was around, they were all drug dealers. They're surprised that I was 16 just dabbling in it and not a lot sooner, because these folks, they was taking care of themselves, at 13 years old. I took it to school with me, and, I started talking to people and trying to sell it. And it just took me forever to get rid of $200 worth of weed. Either I'm doing something wrong, because I'm clearly not doing what Fry's doing, because my $200 grew to $350 or something, and it's just like, that's not really worth it.
Freddie was just getting away the weed. He ain't know nothing. He ain't know what was what or what. He just getting it away.
It's hard to just get out there and just do that kind of stuff. You got to really know what you're doing. You got to know people.
I didn't have a network, just didn't have any margins. I got a job at the St. Petersburg Yacht Club. Yacht Club, I don't know how to describe it, but just a whole bunch of old, rich white people. And they would go there and they would eat their prime rib steaks and play their games, whatever old people do. I would work all day and I would make $20 that day. By the time I would get my check after working a week, it would be like $100-something. And that wasn't gonna get me what I wanted to wear. That wasn't gonna get me the car that I wanted to drive. At the end of the night, when my shift was over, I would go back to my homeboy's trap. Trap was a place where you would sell your drugs. So this was a place where in the neighborhood, it was your storefront. That's when I got my first crack cocaine from him. Tried my hand at selling that to see if that would make more money.
He moved from weed to crack, and he thought that was gonna be better for him. But I quickly told him, that ain't the way to go. Crack tore down some good people. That's hell right there.
I was about 16 years old when I was testing my hand at selling crack cocaine. It literally sold itself. I didn't feel good about the people that I saw. I didn't feel good about the way they looked. I didn't feel good about the way they were acting. The image of someone strung out on crack cocaine just was, in my mind, a horrible image. When I would see the people that I would talk to and stuff, they didn't look like that. So there was one time I was sitting in the trap with my homeboy Josh. It was probably about 10 o'clock at night, and this guy walked up and he pulls a gun, and as I come down from my seat to sit up straight, the gun's pointing right at my head, try to basically get me to give him the money. My friend's crazy ass starts tussling with him and ends up getting shot in his ass. He just yelled, shot, he grabs his ass and stuff. The dude runs, right? So we took him to the hospital, he got patched up. It was a crazy night where it just seemed like this doesn't make sense. That was probably my last time sitting in that trap after that. And after that, actually, is when I actually started seriously considering there has to be a better way. The next most successful person in my family was my Uncle JT, and he was in the Air Force. That was another contrast image of success. You have Fry on one side, and you have Uncle JT on the other. Both having BMWs, both having nice cars. I said, okay, the Air Force could be interesting. After high school, I went and did the ASVAB test, which is basically the assessment test for the Air Force. In my mind, I told myself that I was gonna be a pilot, but after I took the test, I was like, no, you're actually gonna be an electrician. This is how this works. So we'll tell you what you're gonna do.
When Freddie joined the Air Force, I was proud of him, because somebody in the family gotta make it out.
From that point, I didn't do anything illegal. Went off to basic training, then went off to tech school. And then after tech school, they assign you whatever your base you're going to be based at. And I ended up in Las Vegas at Nellis Air Force Base. Alfonso was also assigned there, and we just became friends.
I
I was in the Air Force about 4 years when I met Frederick. Frederick was one of the first people that I met in Las Vegas working on F-16s.
He worked in avionics, which was the navigational equipment on the F-16. And because I worked as an electrician on F-16, our jobs overlapped a lot.
We happened to be from the same city.
He's from Tampa, I was from St. Petersburg.
You know, he's black. There wasn't too many black guys in our shop. He was sharp, very sharp dude.
My first 6 months or so, I just mastered it. I mastered what I was doing. I mastered my job, and it just wasn't enough. I was always interested in more. And I said, okay, well, what else can I do? The next logical thing to me was, I just want to start a business. I got the call like I usually do. We meet, he gets in the car with me. He put the duffel bag in the back seat. But as I reach back and I start feeling it, he pulls out a gun. I was 18 years old, and I just want to start a business. I started looking around, I started going online and started, trying to figure out what kind of business I can get into. I said, well, why don't I just shortcut the whole starting a business part and just buy one that's existing, and then I'm gonna be rich and I won't have to do anything. So I set my sight on the gas station. And I said, I'm gonna buy this gas station. The guy who owned it, I'll never forget it, is old white guy. And I don't know why he would take my calls. I don't know why he would talk to me, but he did. So long story short, I got the price down to about $100,000. Like, where the hell am I gonna get $100,000 from? And the next week, guess who shows up? D.
I'm here. I told Fred, I said, I'm gonna be out there in Vegas. I said, I might need you. So one day I just happened to get out there, and that's when Fred came and picked me up, and I stayed on the Army base with him in his apartment. And that's when I introduced him to everything. That was the day Freddie got involved with me in the weed game.
When D showed up in Vegas, he started telling me a little bit about what he was doing.
Back then, all the weed was coming out of Tucson. So I said, well, I'm gonna go to Tucson myself so I can cut all the middle people out, and I just go out there and find my own plug. So that's what happened. That's how I started the operation. I went out to Vegas, got a house out there, and that was my headquarters. I wasn't gonna fly into Tucson because I knew everybody was in Tucson, and Tucson was already hot. I'm gonna try to stay off the radar. I'll just fly into Vegas like I'm just hanging out in Vegas.
He would get weed from Vegas. His connect would meet him and bring 30, 40 pounds at a time. He would buy it and then ship it back to Florida. He would fly back to Florida to get there before it arrives, and then he would collect it, and he would just ship it to an address, and he would make sure that he's at that address to receive it. It made sense. That's why I wasn't able to make money when I was in St. Pete, because I'm at the end of the food chain. You have to really be at the beginning in order to make the money, and that's where all the money's being made. I told him about my gas station idea, and D always encouraged that. He was like, yeah, that's a great idea, because he always would remind me, I'm not trying to do this shit forever. This shit is a means to an end. This shit is not cool. We do this shit, we get our money out, and we get out. He said, we can get $100,000 together. He said, that's doable.
I ain't really bring him in at first, but I just showed him what I was doing.
I was just there observing a lot, watching Derek manage it. I moved off base, we got an apartment together, and it was cool for me because I had a roommate that was only there sometimes. The apartment turned into the stash house. Money would be stashed there, the drugs would be stashed there, and it just started growing from there, and that's when I started to get more involved and ask more questions. D would start showing me different aspects. Okay, this is how I wrap it up, and this is what we do. So I started just learning. I basically was interning. The way it worked is you would have your connect, the person that actually is getting the shit from Mexico. His driver would take it from him and deliver it to whoever his point is. They'll bring in duffel bags, and inside the duffel bags will be these big bales of marijuana. We would buy this dish detergent, and we would wrap the weed up with plastic wrap to make it real thick, and then we would cover it with dish detergent.
Then you just pour the liquor stuff all around it, and you just smother it around it, then you wrap it a couple more times.
And then wrap it again to seal it, and then what I would do is it would kill the smell.
But I know one thing, we definitely use a lot of dish detergent.
It would smell like, clean dishes versus 30 pounds of marijuana, which was good. I mean, that's what we wanted.
It's just one big room with just a bunch of blocks of weed just selling with all the stuff that we use.
We would be hours in there. And I mean, my arms would start itching, like, you're rolling in grass. I started having allergic reactions to it. And I hated it, but for me, it was exciting because I was starting to do the math, and I was starting to figure out a 30-pound bale that I'm just wrapping up was actually worth on the street $30,000 minimum. As that math started to click in my head, I started seeing, okay, well, this is actually something very valuable. I actually said, I want to get in. And, that's when it really started to expand.
And then from there, everything just happened to come together. And
I didn't know what Frederick was doing. I didn't know what Dee's business was. I never asked, really, knowing Frederick. I think he tried to keep me away from what was really going on. He didn't want to kind of bring me deep into what he was actually doing at the time.
Dee started getting tired of flying to Vegas every couple weeks. It turned into, all right, I'm gonna be there this week, I'll be there next week, I'll be there in 2 weeks, I'll be there next month. And then those bigger time periods where he started to see that I picked up pretty quick. And then it got to the point where he trusted me to handle it all. Because our volumes got so big and the amount that we was getting got so high, I decided that it made more sense for me to go get it in Arizona myself. And I would just drive out there and meet with the driver and then bring it back. I bought a car and I had special shocks put in so that it can carry a lot of weight without dipping down and looking all weird. And then I would get my military outfit and hang it in the back window like I was coming home from work or something because they had bases there, and then I would drive. I was young, I was 18. In this one case, I got the call like I usually do, saying that, we're ready for you. It was a different driver that I hadn't dealt with in the past, but I didn't think nothing of it because that wasn't the first time that happened. We meet, he gets in the car with me. His car with the load in it is across the way. We start talking, we count the money together, so the money's there, so cool. He gets out and he goes and gets the duffel bag, and he basically tries to just put the duffel bag in the back seat and without getting back in the car. But I insist that he puts it in and gets back in the car just because I wanted to be able to put my hand behind me and kind of at least touch it and feel it because I didn't have a scale. This was all on the road. So this is at this point, this is all on trust. Usually what will happen is you would have a scale, you would take it out, you would weigh it, and then you do the exchange that way. This is after I've been dealing with the same Connect for a while. So, there was a level of trust that if this is a driver, there's a level of trust there that was extended from, my relationship with the Connect. But as I reached back and I started feeling it, it felt a little bit small, but it was very heavy and it felt very dense. So I said, this kind of feels weird. I put the money on this side of me and he's on the passenger side just so he can't reach it. I turn it all around and I pull it over to the driver's seat and I put it in my lap. And as I'm opening it up, he pulls out a gun. I can manipulate the shipping records however I wanted. I just had a lot of packages going to Florida from different customers. It allowed me to ship whatever I wanted to ship, whenever I wanted to ship.
I didn't realize how much of a risk that he was actually taking.
And then from there, it took off.
He basically tries to just put the duffel bag in the back seat and without getting back in the car, but I insist that he puts it in and gets back in the car just because I wanted to be able to put my hand behind me and kind of at least touch it and feel it. But as I reached back and I start feeling it, I realized that inside this duffel bag is nothing but beans wrapped up to feel like a bale of marijuana. And as I'm opening it up, he pulls out a gun. I'd grab it and we're sitting there in the parking lot of this damn mall. I'm tussling with him with his gun in his hand. Car's rocking with two grown-ass men in there doing this. I end up getting the gun out of his hand. He bails out of the car and they pull off. I almost got. This motherfucker just tried to get me. And I would have had a bag of pinto beans and been $20,000 less after I drove 4 hours. And I was just mad as hell about the attempt. But then that's when we started meeting the actual Connect face-to-face. From the time that I actually was more active, it grew from, the 20, 30 pounds a week to 100 to 200 to 300 pounds. That happened over about 6 months while I was still in the military. During 9/11, the armed forces really grew. They hired a lot of people, they brought a lot of people on. Once all that started dying down, they started basically doing budgetary cuts and basically started downsizing. So they offered, even though you had a 4-year enlistment period, if you want to get out early, you can. And you can keep your honorable discharge, keep all your benefits. So I signed up for it because now I was making more money outside the military than I was in. And I was just full-time in a drug game at that point.
It's like a tier type level of hierarchy when it comes to selling drugs. So I didn't realize how high he was up on that tier. And I didn't realize how much of a risk that he was actually taking. Like, I didn't know that at the time.
I would go down there and meet with the Connect and then take it to the stash house and then box it up and ship it out. Vegas is only so big. It got to the point where I went to every single damn UPS, FedEx, DHL store in the city, places like Office Max, Office Depot, anything that had those shipping centers in it. One of the concerns that we started to get is that people would see me all the time because as it started getting more and more volume, I ran out of stores to go to, and I tried to not go to the same store within the same week because I didn't want to hit the person that was at the counter because they would either steal it or have the cops there. I would make the return address up and it's shipped to address. The only thing that mattered was getting the zip code right and the street right. The numbers didn't matter because we always had people on payroll on the actual trucks. Our goal was to get the package on the right truck. You know, I always would go in there with hats and I would try to put on the most corniest, squarest outfit I could to be unassuming, always pay with cash, never use a card, and just all those very simple things to make sure that every package I sent was completely untraceable.
And then once it hits that plane, that's when you know it's real. It's gone, because the next day you be on your thing tracking it. And once you know that it's on the plane, you be like, now the next thing is when it get to the next hub, you just hoping it get on that truck.
Fry would have his team of people that he would distribute to, and D would have his team of people that would distribute to.
We're splitting between 3 guys, so everybody making money. Fry might send for 700 pounds, I might send for 800.
That would then basically filter down to whoever's on the actual street level.
The rush, it was a rush for me back then, you know what I'm saying, just to be able to do all that stuff.
And they would send the money back to me. We would buy DVD players and VCRs, and we would take all the guts out and then just basically pack the money in the case, screw it back shut, and pack it back in a box, the original packing, and then ship it. Each DVD, VCR have 50 to 100,000 in it. That's how we would get the money back from Florida. And then sometimes I would even fly down to Florida and then fly back with it on me. And then I would go meet with the Connect and then re-up the next amount and then do the same process all over again. But as the volume started to grow, that got more and more difficult to do because I had so much. I didn't want people recognizing me going to the same store over time. Like, why are you always sending boxes to Florida? Because all my packages was going to Florida. I started running out of shipping stores that I can go to. And I was like, yo, it's impossible for me to keep up with this volume without me driving out of town. I've gone to every single shipping store that I can. So I got the bright idea, why don't we just buy one? So
I say, cool, go see if you can get the store, then we're gonna buy.
So instead of trying to buy a gas station, we bought a shipping store from this old Jewish guy and his wife. He was a professional gambler, and he bought her this store because, you know, she wanted something to do. And it was in the middle of the damn hood, paid $50,000 for it, cash. They didn't ask any questions. And I had a mail store. I was in the mail business then. Once I had the mail store, we had UPS, FedEx, DHL. I can manipulate the shipping records however I wanted. According to the records, I just had a lot of packages going to Florida from different customers. It allowed me to ship whatever I wanted to ship, whenever I wanted to ship.
Then from there, it took off. I mean, things got bigger. And without him, I couldn't have did a lot of what I did, so.
That really cemented everything where now it was game over. I mean, at that point, just my own personalities of how do I take this and make it that was really what I was focused on. You have 300 pounds of weed, the bales literally stack all the way up to the ceiling. When we got to that volume, obviously the dish detergent trick didn't work anymore. It was too much work, too much time. And one day I was walking in the store, I saw these vacuum seal bags on the shelf. And it was like for comforters and where people would put their winter coat in and store it for the summer. And I said, this might work for what we need. So I bought a box and I took it home and I put it in and I connected the vacuum to it and it shrunk. I took the bale and I threw it in the pool and then I took it out and it was completely dry. The light bulb came on. I said, oh, this is genius. The vacuum seal allowed us to get to that scale because before it was just too much work. But once we had the vacuum seal bags, you just drop the bale in there, seal it, connect the vacuum hose to it. It was done. You put it in a box. There was no smell. There was no anything. It was perfect. We could physically handle more. And then we had that along with the shipping center. It just made it very easy to get drugs in and out.
The biggest shipment, probably like 2,000 pounds. Like 2,000 pounds at once.
I was 20 and I lived in Las Vegas. So in Vegas, it's very easy to spend money. When there'll be big fights, so there'll be Mayweather fights, everyone will come in from Florida. You have multiple suites in the Mandalay Bay or the MGM, wherever the fights was happening. And I would try to find a reason to wear my fur coat.
When we did go out, it's always like VIP. It's always bottles. It's always women. It's always like special treatment. He would be like, oh no, I got it. You know, he'll buy the drinks and he'll buy the bottles. And at the time, I mean, I was, you know, a single guy in the military, so I wasn't completely broke. I used to think that Fred had a lot of money doing something. Like, I didn't know exactly what it was at the time.
For me, it was just really just being able to have the lifestyle and be able to take care of the people that I cared about and the people that was close to me.
His personality didn't change, but you could see the gradual upgrade to his lifestyle, for sure. Like, that's Fred. He's VIP Fred. That's kind of who he is, you know.
Got a pretty good taste of, you know, what the good life could taste like. They started putting tracking devices and started watching all the drivers.
And they looked in there and wasn't nothing in there but books and that tracker.
All us jump out and run.
Our usual process was get the bales in, get them shipped out, and then get the money back and just repeat. That was our plan, and this went on for a few years. Money was stashed everywhere, from between Florida and where D stashed it to where Fry stashed it to apartments in Phoenix. It was everywhere.
We were doing legit stuff too with it. Buy houses, buy real estate. That's where I invested my money in, stuff like that.
It was always circulating, so we was always putting it back. We was always flipping it back. It was just one of those things where it would just continue to grow. In Florida, the law enforcement there they knew all these damn boxes of weed kept coming to the city, but they didn't know where the hell they were coming from, and they couldn't trace them back. They had a question mark in Tampa and St. Petersburg of, you know, where's all this shit coming from? They started putting tracking devices and started watching all the drivers. Where they would intercept the most amount of drugs, they started watching those routes.
They'll take the weed out, take a picture of it, and confiscate it. And then they'll put some like fake books and stuff, and then they'll put it's like a tracker that they'll put in there. So if you get the box, they can follow you wherever you're going at.
D went to pick up a box, and they exchanged the weed out for phone books and put a tracking device in it.
So we get the box. It feels like the weed in there.
I knew something was wrong with the package, and by the time we got around the corner, and I told them to get out and open it, they opened it, and they looked in there, and wasn't nothing in there but books and that tracker. So the tracker is just to make sure that they can follow your every move. Here come a car coming down the alley behind us. And we got down the alley and we drove a little minute.
Somebody following us.
By the time we turned on the main street, we seen a bunch of vans coming.
It was a high-speed chase chasing him, and they drove all over the city, and the cops was chasing them.
All us jump out and run.
They bail on the car, and then he's run through the neighborhood.
Well, we was hauling ass in the neighborhood, but they just keyed in on Fry because he had those dreads on top of his head. So that's where they really was at.
I'm the only one got caught that day. D and my other partner, they got away.
D went to this poor old lady's house, probably scared her half to death, and she was cool. And he's like, yo, I'll give you all the money in my pocket if you just let me hang out here. And then the cops circle around, and they couldn't find him. And he gave her the money, and then he called and told me about it that afternoon.
I got away, and they got Fry.
Once I got caught with that, it was like 50 pounds. I just got probation. I went and paid a big lawyer. Probably paid him like $20,000. And he got me probation, state probation. Once that one package got knocked off, we didn't feel no alarm or nothing. I didn't feel like it was a threat or nothing to operation we had going on.
I watched a lot of my packages get knocked off, so I seen how it went.
It was still business as usual for us. But then that's when the investigation really started to get traction from a law enforcement perspective. It shifted from we just keep catching this and confiscating these drugs to we actually have a target now. So sometimes I would go to Florida to pick money up and then fly back with it on me. When D picked me up from the airport, he was saying, you know, I think some people telling us, but D was always, he was always like that. D would say somebody was following us when nobody was in the room but us. So, I mean, I was so desensitized from him saying that because he was always super overly cautious. So I picked up the money, and in my bag, I basically had stacks of hundreds all the way up, and it was about 50,000. When I would travel back to the West Coast, I used to go through the airport with 50, 60 cash on me and no issues. Money doesn't show up good on the scanners. They can see money, they can't tell how much money it is. So they have no concept the difference between looking at 10,000 or looking at 100,000. It was a Sunday. I flew back on a Sunday intentionally because there wasn't a lot of traffic and I can get through security really easily. I had got to know the airport really well. I had got to know the different people who work different times. I had done it so much. I knew what normal was, and I knew that day wasn't normal. There was a lot of cops at the airport that day, and I'm still like, okay, whatever, this might be some, weird thing. And I go through, and a regular uniformed officer pulls me to the side, and he says, yeah, we're just gonna do extra checks in your bag. And that's okay, whatever. I mean, that's happened to me several times before. I still didn't think nothing of it. I have the money on me and then in different pockets and clothes rolled up, as I usually do. And basically they said, can they take me to this other room, this back room in the airport? And at that point, okay, I said, this is different. Like, they've never taken me from TSA into some private room with no windows, with a stainless steel table. So they take me to that room, and then one of the investigators comes in the room, and he's like, where'd you get the money from? So I feed him the line, yeah, I have a business. I'm going to Vegas to bet on the game. And he said, okay, we pulled you over because our dog alerted it that this smelled like weed. He said, we're gonna compensate it, we'll give you a receipt for it. And then I started talking shit about how I'm gonna get my lawyer and it's legitimate money. And he basically said, well, call your lawyer and have your lawyer call us and we'll figure it out. And he was very polite, writes his information down, he gives me my receipt, he keeps the money, and then I don't even miss my flight. That's how fast this was. So I still make my flight. And then I started thinking about when I came into the airport, how the uniform officer was there and they're usually not there. They're usually like in the booth off to the side, and how they were standing right at the TS thing when I came through. I was like, yeah, they was actually waiting on me. And I'm saying, you know what, maybe D was right. I started putting two and two together that now they're focusing on me. So a month later, I was in my mail store and all these trucks pulled up. This is not good. There's an airstrip and airplane with no branding. You think Spirit Airlines is uncomfortable. This is a whole nother level of uncomfortable. I was in my mail store. It was all glass storefront, and then both sides, you see a bunch of windbreakers, and everybody knows when you see a bunch of windbreakers all rushing in the store with big letters on the back. I knew there was nothing at the store, but I had driven down to my shipping store because I had 150 pounds that I wanted to ship out that day, and that's what I was driving to the store to do. And it just so happened that I came in and I started talking to my girlfriend that I just didn't get a chance to unload the trunk yet. So it was still just sitting in the car in a parking lot. They really was thinking they was gonna find something in the store. They tore the store up. They was going through all the shipping records. The jackpot that they was looking for was literally 20 feet away from where they were standing. And then they was doing smoke breaks, all standing by the damn car, not knowing that what they were looking for was literally an arm's reach away. So I'm sitting there the whole time. I don't even want to look at my car because I don't even want them to see me looking at the car because I don't want them to give me no ideas. So I'm intentionally not letting my eyes ever go to the car. When they was about to leave, one of the female detectives said, we searched everything, but we didn't search the car. Do you mind if we take a look in your car? I said, does your search warrant include my car? One of the young detectives, he looked at me back, oh, you want to be a smartass? He waved a pair of handcuffs in my face, and he's like, you have a pair of these in your future. That was that. They left. I waited a little bit. I'm looking at my girlfriend. She's looking at me. The soldier that she is, she said, well, you stay here. They're going to follow you. I'm going to get in the car, and I'm going to leave. So she got in the car and left with it and drove it back to the house. And then I stayed at the store, and I just came home later that night. After they did the search, I didn't believe I was going to go to jail, to be honest. I felt like I have an honorable discharge from the Air Force, and this is just marijuana. And at the worst, I could say, okay, yeah, I shipped one box. I had no idea that they had been calculating all the boxes up to 8,000 pounds. I had no idea the amount of people that they had already interviewed and talked to and got information from. At that search warrant, I knew that I was going to have to tell my family something because I knew something was gonna come from this. I didn't know how big. I had to come clean about this double life that I was living where from their perspective, it was just me and I'm running a business, I have a mail store, and then this other side was I'm basically distributing marijuana from Mexico to Florida. I downplayed it by a lot when I talked to my mom and I told her, you know, getting a little bit of weed and from Fry, and you know, I wasn't really doing much, but I was shipping packages down there and we think the cops found some, so I might get a weed charge, and I downplayed it. At the time, I was very confident that it wasn't gonna be a big deal, that it was gonna be a slap on the wrist. She was extremely disappointed because I knew better. It wasn't that she didn't raise me better than that. Even though we grew up in a very low income home and family, she taught us good morals. She taught us right from wrong. Of course, from her perspective is, oh my God, how could you? You know better. Yeah, you're right. You know I do. But I was presented the line and I crossed it. So a few months after that, I was at the mail store again, and it's the same thing. A bunch of cars pulled up. I was actually talking to one of our customers, this old guy named Brian, and they damn near made Brian piss in his pants because he's never seen this. Brian's 65 years old, and then all these people pull up with trucks with gun drawn.
When I came back to Florida from out of town, and I said, well, damn. It just was a gut feeling. I had a gut feeling because when I came out my house where I stay at, it shouldn't be no cars. Like, so I came out and I seen a weird car and a guy was sitting in there. I was like, well, damn, who is this sitting in this car? It kind of scared me. So that's when they knew I was in town. He in town, we got him, we got hands on him, we know where he at now.
At that point, I'm not shocked. I kind of knew this was coming. It was just like waiting for the day. I think about running. I think about trying to get away. All those thoughts flashed in my mind real quickly.
So that night, I said, well, I'm gonna stay with my wife, I'm gonna stay with my kids, just in case they do get me. About 4, 5 in the morning, I heard a bunch of banging on the door. Boom, 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 boom. I jumped up, I went to the door and I looked at the door. There was like 60, 80 of them out there. I said, damn. I said, baby, they out there. I said, baby, they out there. She went to crying. She said, oh, I said, they out there. She said, damn.
So that's when it started to really set in that I had got myself into something that I wasn't gonna be able to easily get myself out of.
The agent, he came in, he laughing. He like, you know what time it is? I'm like, what time it is? He like, you know what time it is? He said, it's time. Time to go. They got Freddie and Baker, but they hit everybody at the same time.
When they brought me into the judge to read my charges in arraignment, they said, you know, this is a co-conspirator for 3,000 kilograms of marijuana. And I'm like, 3,000 kilograms? I'm doing the math. I'm like, that's like 2 tons. Like, what? I'm like, yo, that's damn near 2 tons. Like, what do you mean? What do you mean? They read off my charges and my lawyer's doing all the talking. All this is blurred out. I'm just hearing like one tone. I heard the word flight risk. That's when my heart just sunk. And at that point, I knew I wasn't going home.
They gave me 168 months. I like, well, hell, 168 months? I like calculate, I like that, 14 years.
I got 168 months. I was the last one to plead out.
They shuffled us out the courtroom. They take me back to the lawyer. I'm still in shock. And my lawyer comes to the glass. We're back to the glass. He's talking to me. He's like, they want to see you back in Florida. So I'm like, see me back in Florida? I mean, how am I gonna get to Florida? They're gonna put me on a plane? And I had no idea what transport means when you're in prison. About a week in the Vegas County Jail, they put me in a van and we drove to Victorville, California. When we got there, there's an airstrip. And on the airstrip, there was this, it looks like a Southwest Airlines airplane with no branding. We get on this plane, everything is stripped out. There's just seat belts and seats. There's no leaning back on seats. And this plane is packed with inmates. They chain you together and then they put this box and they chain your wrist to your waist. You think Spirit Airlines is uncomfortable. This is a whole nother level of uncomfortable. The only thought in my mind is like, how on earth, where a few weeks before, me and my girl, we was in Acapulco, and now I'm in khakis with a t-shirt with my wrist strapped to my waist. When I got to Florida, went to court again for the formal charges. The attorneys, they look at it and they say, look, this is what they have. They're charged with conspiracy. I was adamant about they didn't find nothing on me. They don't have nothing on me. It doesn't matter. They have enough people saying that you're involved. So as far as the government's concerned, you're involved. So when I got to the courtroom, the judge, she looked me in the eye and she said, you would have never stopped and you had no intention of stopping. You had to be stopped. And she gave me the 51 months. My mom and my girlfriend, they was all in the court, and I thought maybe they let you hug a piece of goodbye. No, at that moment, they put cuffs on you and they take you right to the back right after that point.
Did you ever feel bad and guilty for bringing him into your operation?
Mm-hmm. I mean, he ain't deserve to go to jail really, you know what I'm saying? It just happened like that though.
Although I wouldn't recommend it, prison is actually a really good place to have no distractions and to just let all the crazy shit just go away and just know who you are. It was a lot of just self-reflection and getting to know myself. As I went through that process, I realized that the common theme in everything that I've done was that I really enjoy solving a problem. I was always identifying different problems that I saw around me and thinking of solutions. And one of those things that really stood out to me was just a clear need where everyone around me wanted more than anything else was easier way to communicate with the loved ones on the outside. I saw how excited I felt when I would receive mail at mail call. I saw what that did for other people who received mail at mail call. And I saw how grumpy the motherfuckers who never got mail was at mail call. It was a very obvious problem to solve. What people would do is they would go to a Walgreens or a CVS pharmacy that has a photo lab, and they would go get photos printed, and then they would mail it. The post office closes the same time you get off work. It just turned into this big inconvenience for people to easily share moments. And you know, what ended up happening is people just didn't do it. My idea was simple because I'm reading all these things about smartphones now that seem to be taking off. Why don't people just upload their photos right on their smartphone and hit the send button and then have it come? And then make sure the package of photos is always within prison guidelines. That was when I first started thinking about, okay, when I get out, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna build an app that's gonna allow people in jail to receive photos from the levels on the outside. So I started doing the numbers and I figured, okay, there's 2 million people in jail. On average, we're connected to 5 to 7 people on the outside. I said, you know what, I'll build this the first year and you know, I'll be a millionaire by the second. And that's the dream that I sold Alfonso on.
He was like, let's send photos. And I was like, okay, let's do it.
So once I was released, I had Alfonso hire me on paper so that I can meet the requirements for the halfway house to get out. In federal prison, they give you this time period to reintegrate you to the community where you're still incarcerated, you're still technically in jail. If you have employment, you can leave.
When we first started, I had a tax office. It was like an H&R Block type franchise that I had. It was like one of those old legal offices. We were in there trying to get a tech company started.
We raised a small amount of money from just people we knew and guys from their neighborhood, and we were in business, and we started the company that way. Today, our company is called Pigeonly. We have 6 consumer-facing products, one of which obviously is the photo printing service, but then we also allow people to send letters, greeting cards, postcards.
Sometimes a person being in prison can just be a second thought for some people. The idea is to make it easy, convenient, and affordable.
He set up the thing for me, and he was sending me pictures every day, so constantly I got pictures of different things I was able to keep up.
One of the key factors in recidivism rates is the ability for someone to stay in touch with their loved ones on the outside. We're shipping 3,000 to 4,000 pieces of mail a day. In federal prison, to talk 300 minutes, it will cost $70. Without service, those same 300 minutes only cost $18.
Did you use it?
Yeah, I always used it, supported it too, pushed it. That really amazed me with him. I knew he was gonna have a plan when he get out. I told him that was a good look. Fred
always been smart. Fred always been a G. It took this for him to go through to get where he at. That what made him, I believe. You know, going through what we went through and everything.
When I think back of the gas station that I was trying to get to where I am now, it's night and day difference. I'm not trying to shit on the gas station, but but at least what we have now is something that is making a real impact on people's lives, and I can do well by doing good. So today, our company is valued over $15 million, and we have customers in 88 countries. It started with just a simple idea of, we're just gonna make it easy for people to send photos. And it's grown to this thing where we have people all over the world using us because we solve this very key problem for them. It's definitely humbling.
Now he's in a good position. He know a lot of powerful people. Freddie bought $1 million house. I didn't know that until my grandma.